Hey there, welcome back to Casting Workbook and the Working Actor. I'm your host, Natasha Gargiulo, and I'm so thrilled to be back here for season 3 of The Working Actor. And boy, do we have so many amazing, talented casting directors and talents who are going to be on season 3. And one thing that I really love, aside from the film and television industry, is advocating and empowering women. And we have 2 trailblazers in the casting industry here on our show today. They met while they were working at 20th Century Fox, and then they decided, what are we going to work for them for when we can build our own empire? And that's exactly what they're doing today. We are joined by Meg Morman and Sunday Boling, who neither go by their first name, by the way, and we'll tell you more about that later, who are with us on The Working Actor today. Thanks for being with us, ladies.
Thanks for having us.
So I always love asking these questions to casting directors, especially successful ones, because often when you say, how did casting fall into your lap? They often answer with, well, I really didn't want to be a casting director. It just came my way. So how did casting come into your journey?
Pretty much that way.
Really?
I mean, for me anyway.
Yeah.
I started out as wanting to be an actor, and I went to college to get my degree. I got a BFA in acting and directing. And part of the program that I went to required you to do an internship in casting, either in New York or LA. And my school was in Ohio. And so I came out to LA and interned on 2 shows for CBS. And in that process, I really enjoyed casting and found that it was sort of a nice balance between my artistic side, and it used the skills that I learned in school, but then it was also a business, and I've always enjoyed aspects of business. So for me, I realized pretty quickly that I didn't necessarily want to pursue acting in Los Angeles, but I liked casting. And through my internship, I met some great people at 20th Century Fox and ended up getting hired over there for my first job, and sort of it all unfolded from there.
Right. So Meg is working at 20th Century Fox, and then Sunday's working at 20th Century Fox. So Sunday, take us back to how casting fell on your lap, but also first explain why we call you Sunny instead of Sunday. What a cool name. I would go with Sunday.
Oh, thank you. Well, actually, it started because my mom heard, well, she always wanted to name a daughter Sunny her whole life since the 4th grade. And then as she got an adult, she married my dad, and she just thought it was too much of a nickname. She was not pregnant. She just decided in advance. She heard a song on the radio, and she said to my dad, oh, I have an idea. When we have a daughter one day, what if we name her Sunday and call her Sunny? And my grandmother was in the back seat, and she said, well, you can get used to anything. And so it was planned. And when I was born, they actually thought they were having a boy, and then surprise, it was me. And they had the name picked out. So it's always been, we'll name her Sunday, but we'll call her Sunny. And that's always been it.
It's a great stage name.
It is. Well, it's very, as a little kid, when you're Sunday bowling and they had Monday Night Football, it was an embarrassing name because nobody else had a name like that.
Yeah.
But now it's perfect. It's very memorable. Yeah. No, there's no other Sunday bowling. So I love it now. I just took some time to grow into it.
All right. So now you are known to everyone who you love as Sunny. So tell us how you fell in love with casting.
So I went to Johns Hopkins University for college and majored in writing. Knew I wanted to be in the entertainment business, but didn't quite know how I was going to make my way to California, and learned of a program called the Los Angeles Film Studies Center through my dad as a philosopher and a teacher. So through him, basically, I learned of this program, and it's like going to Los Angeles for a semester instead of a semester abroad. I was like, oh, this is perfect. I can apply to this program, and I can go in a safe way and check out Los Angeles and see if I want to stay. Part of the program was to intern in the business. And that was also the most appealing part, because I was like thinking, oh, you intern, you get a job, you get to stay. And so my last semester of college, I came to LA. Meg interviewed me to be an intern at 20th Century Fox in the feature casting office. So that's how we met. I'd been in LA maybe 2 weeks, met Meg, and I got the internship. and I started interning at 27, interning and finishing school. Christian Kaplan, forget what his title was at the time, but he was an executive in casting, and he asked me to be his assistant. And I had $800 in the bank. I moved here with 2 suitcases. I wanted to stay, and so I took this job because it was work. And so I actually started working full-time at Fox while completing my last semester of college. I look very tired in the school photo. And I stayed and I worked there. Basically, her desk faced me, my profile.
Mhm.
And so we were almost looking at each other all day, every day for about 9 months to a year.
So you're looking at each other for 9 months to a year. And when did you finally decide, well, you know what, since we're looking at each other all the time, let's just join forces and create our own casting division?
It didn't take very long. I mean, we both went our separate ways and stayed friends. I actually went into the music business for a bit because I wasn't sure about casting. And then about it was like 3 to 4 years later, we decided to start our company. So it didn't take long, but we had both started really. I mean, my first job was at 20th Century Fox. I didn't really know that much about casting, to be honest, until starting to work there. So we both kind of went our separate ways and worked for other casting directors before we started our own company.
So casting isn't something that you can enroll in at school, and it's not something that you can take a course in. So how did the both of you, I guess, perfect these skills and become such great casting directors in Los Angeles?
I mean, I think a lot of it is we both really understand acting. We've both studied acting at different points in our lives. And so a lot of casting is your taste in actors and also working with actors, directing them, understanding script analysis, and understanding how to get to an actor from point A to point B in an audition. So I think that is something we both come at with both natural interest, and we've worked at it, and it really helps on our day-to-day in casting.
I think also we were both really lucky in some ways that our careers started working at a very high level with amazing directors and casting directors. All of my first movies were huge budgeted studio films with amazing creative talent behind them. And so they're giving notes, they're coaching actors, they're making recommendations, they're making lists that you're privy to, talking about who works and who doesn't work for something. You're in on auditions with some of the best in the business. I mean, working at Fox was such a dream to me because growing up in Knoxville, Tennessee and wanting to be in entertainment, there was nothing at the time when I was a kid. Then I work in this office where, Sidney Poitier is stopping by and Hugh Jackman's coming to show us pictures of his baby. And, you're getting to meet and work with amazing talent. And so you're not only, I was already interested in acting and storytelling, so you're getting to watch people work at a really high level and learn from them what works and what doesn't work, what's the language best used to craft an audition. I mean, Donna Isaacson, who ran the department at 20th Century Fox, I'll never forget how she was directing, giving notes in auditions when we worked on Dude, Where's My Car? It's a silly comedy, but she had very specific notes. And I think learning it in that way was extremely helpful.
Yeah, I bet. And, I want to talk about some of the films that you guys have worked on and also some of your accolades and your accomplishments. You have worked on Ice Age, Dude, Where's My Car, From Hell, Unfaithful. I love that movie. And Behind Enemy Lines. Then you guys went on and opened up your own casting agency. 16 years now, you have over 100 films and TV projects under your belt. And you've also been nominated 9 times for an Artios Awards. We are huge supporters of the Artios here on Casting Workbook. We were part of the awards ceremony this year during the pandemic. So it was all virtual. And one of the awards that you won for was for the relationship status. And I want to
Mhm.
talk a little bit about that because that's about dating in a digital age. So what was that like casting for that one?
I mean, quite honestly, it was a lot of fun because Celine Geiger, who's a writer, her she had such a understanding of the process. I have no idea if she dated online or not, but her language, her dialogue was so relatable. And I think a lot of people in their 20s and 30s have done some sort of online dating. So people were very responsive to the script. And the auditions were just fun because the material we started with was so great and relatable and enjoyable. And there were heartfelt moments and funny moments. And so the whole process was really a joy to work on.
Now, what do you think it is about that project that caught the attention of, everyone and garnered you an award?
I honestly, the relatability of it,
Yeah.
because even if you haven't done online dating, you know someone who has, you've heard the stories. And it was just well executed show. We ended up with a great cast, and Haven Entertainment produced it, and they just really do high quality work. So it was fast and easy to watch, and I think an easy guilty pleasure for a lot of people.
Yeah. So from dating in a digital world to casting in a digital world,
Mm.
we've been now, I think it's safe to say, 2 years that we've been dealing with a pandemic. People have been at home, working from home. Auditions have been virtual or self-tapes. How have you guys been navigating through these kind of weird times?
This has been a tough transition for us. We are an office that we like to audition in person.
Yeah.
And despite the move of so many people to majority of self-taping, we had not moved into that place. We use self-taping when necessary and when we've been casting in other remote locations, but we still love having people in the office, doing callbacks in the office, working with people. So it was a difficult transition to just meeting virtually and having to just rely upon more self-taping and not getting to spend time with actors, not getting to work with them and direct them in the same way that we used to.
Yeah. Meg, what's your thoughts on how you've been navigating through the pandemic and the audition process for trying to find the perfect person for a role?
You know, the self-taping is a great starting point, but for me, on the projects that we've done, I've really tried to at least have virtual auditions for the last round of auditions. There's certainly been a couple of projects where I realized the material did not lend itself well to self-taping. It was just people weren't understanding tone and so forth. So I just had to switch to seeing everyone virtually and got much better results. It's not the same as working with people in person, but it is certainly, to me, preferable to the self-tape. I feel like I'm grateful that all of these things exist because it's made it possible for casting to continue to happen. But at the same time, like Sunny said, meeting with actors in a room is very different. Being able to feed off of each other's energy, even, a typical day before COVID, I might have a session in the morning, a lunch break, a session in the afternoon. And even though I saw a ton of people, I was energized at the end of the day because you're meeting people and you're getting their energy. And, there's nothing better than auditioning someone and having them really deliver. It's
Sure.
exciting for them. It's exciting for me. And so that sort of raises everybody up. Unfortunately, watching self-tapes doesn't carry that same energy. And so you're like taking bigger breaks, and it's just a little bit more exhausting to watch tape after tape after tape. And in order to do it justice, which I think Sunny and I both try to do, we watch all the self-tapes that we're asked for. And when you sort of notice that maybe your attention's starting to wane a little bit, you have to take a break so that you can give everybody their, due diligence on their self-tape.
Yeah. I'm wondering, because of the pandemic, Zoom has become part of everyone's everyday life, right? And when you're on a business Zoom, for example, it's become acceptable, for example, if you want to dress a little bit like down loungewear, or you need to, leave because your daughter or your child is walking into the room, etc. Have you felt as casting directors, you're probably a little more patient or accepting for things that are not so perfect in an audition or a virtual audition?
I mean, I'm a really patient person as a whole,
That's
and
true.
but we work. I unfortunately, even though we're making initial decisions and we're weeding through things, we're watching things, we're, especially if we're going to then show self-tapes to other individuals, some are very forgiving and can look past the messy, unmade bed behind you. And other people can't. And I think there's also a level of respect for the audition, recognizing that it's a job interview, that you're usually, I think you're hoping you get this job. And so if you've it's one thing, like I have 3 dogs. They sometimes come in. And I get it. It's another thing if we say, hey, great, let's get up and use the space a little bit, and they're not wearing pants.
Really?
Oh, yes.
That happened to me.
It's happened to you too? Oh, come
Yes.
on.
And
no, it did.
It just shows, there's a level of respect for this moment in time. The audition, most auditions are short. We're talking, unless you have just mounds of sides, it's a 5-minute, 7-minute experience.
Right.
And so, to maximize that time and to really do great work, I just feel like put yourself in the best position you can. It's one thing, we had somebody who he got stuck in Missouri during the early part of the pandemic, because of course, who knew it was going to last forever? Right. So he got stuck. His internet was terrible where his parents lived. So the only place for him within like 2 hours was his grandma's house for internet. The best spot, grandma's house was filled to the brim with stuff. So he'd be in the kitchen, collector, surrounded by all of grandma's tchotchkes doing his work. But it was the best he could do. And that's where you go, well, right, we just can. It's another thing when you've got something hanging behind you that might be very questionable, which happened to another casting director, and you can't just, just take it off the wall. For this one 5-minute experience, I think there's this kind of balancing act of like showing some care for the fact that we're making this time and giving this opportunity, and another for the accidents that are going to happen, like the fire engine that comes racing by, or the kid that walks in, something like that is an accident. But other things feel more like put a little thought into it, just a little bit.
Sure. And it might seem like this is something that everyone, like it's not brain surgery, right? It's just common sense. But I just find that with the pandemic and with self-taping, it becomes even something more to be nervous about. And already auditioning is nerve-wracking for an actor. So what are some tips perhaps that you can give to the actors who are tuning in? Because there are a lot, and everyone wants to make it in Hollywood and Los Angeles, right? So we're hearing from 2 of the best in the industry. What are some things that you can provide that maybe can put actors at ease the next time they're submitting a self-tape or going to a virtual audition?
Sure. Well, I mean, I think along the lines of what Sunny was just saying is have a setup that works, that is like your main home setup, not if you have to travel somewhere, but your main space, is clutter-free, you have a decent backdrop, that you can, and by backdrop, I mean, it can be just a plain wall, not that you have to go out and buy a backdrop by any means, and that that you can pull out for a full body or closer to full body. You just have that setup, get your lighting in order, etc., so that every time you get a self-tape, your setup's good to go. You're already ready. And so that technical aspect is less of a worry. And then it becomes simply like a virtual audition, self-tape, etc. You're just worried about the acting because that your technical side is ready to go no matter what.
Now, when you are working together, are you often making the decisions together? For example, if you're casting for a role, do you often, I guess, talk to one another and say who you're going to choose together? Like, are you deciding on the role together?
Not
I can't find the words to say it. So, oh my goodness. Yeah. So when you're casting for specific roles, do you make the decisions together, or is it something that you do separately and just trust in each other's opinion?
So our work, we used to, when we first started our company, when it was a baby, we were in one room all the time together. But as our company has grown, we split projects so that one person's kind of the boss of the project and is handling all the day-to-day, the minutia, because there's no reason for two people to be doing the same work, and so we've split it up. And so one person's the head, so to speak, and then the other person is there for support or picking up where maybe there's too much of something to do, or say, sometimes, especially with self-tapes, sometimes I've been watching forever and I'm like, I don't know anymore. I mean, it's like they're all starting to look the same. Here's 5 people that I think I might like them, but I'm not really sure. And then I'll send them to Meg and say, will you tell me if any of these people stand out to you? And we'll have a discussion about them. But it's not all the time. Sometimes it's just we're trusting one another and having conversations when needed, or to bounce ideas off of one another. Sometimes when making lists of like, oh, we need somebody, like sometimes, an actor falls out, or we've had someone get tested positive for COVID.
Mhm.
Okay, we need someone new now for Monday and it's Thursday night. Who do we have? Who do we know that we can, we'll brainstorm ideas at that time. But every little decision certainly isn't being shared between the two of us.
You had mentioned that you would submit it to Meg and say, is there anything that stands out? So what stands out to you when you're looking at all of these audition tapes and all of these actors and, looking at headshots and all that stuff? What stands out to you and even makes you want to consider seeing more of them?
I mean, I think it starts with a really prepared audition where you can tell that the actor has put a lot of thought and time into making choices and has put effort into rehearsing and planning for their self-tape or virtual audition. So I think it starts with that, because if you haven't done that, it's very hard then to imagine how you would move forward in the role, or to understand if you would really honestly want to, right? So I think it starts with that. And then of course there are, people that fit the tone that we're going for with the movie, or they have a great look, or their perspective on a certain scene is maybe just left of what we had thought, but super interesting. So I think it's hard to put your finger on exactly what makes everyone stand out specifically, but I think it starts with just really prepared auditions. For me anyway, yeah.
Well, I think it's difficult to understand what prepared means, because for some people, prepared is they've learned the lines and they're here and they've showed up. And I think for me, it's seeing that there's choices along the way, so that when I'm hearing this dialogue, I kind of know what they're thinking about. If they're this character, I can see behind the curtain. I'm hearing the words, because sometimes you're saying one thing, but you mean something completely different for the story to make sense. And so when watching, if you're watching and you just believe this person and you go, oh, I know what they're doing, I can understand the choices that they've made, then, and they're interesting in the sense of like, I also get a sense of maybe who this person actually is. That's when it starts to get interesting. It's very easy to learn lines and then just say them.
Right.
Well, I mean, some people have a hard time with that too, but for the most part, we can all like learn a few lines, say them to the camera, but it doesn't make them interesting just because it's being recorded. It's interesting because you've decided, where am I? Who am I talking to? How do I feel about this person? What am I talking about? Where does this fit within the story? And sometimes too, it's just when someone can do a scene and they understand where it is in the timeline of this film or the timeline of this show, so that maybe they're keeping a secret because they know later the secret's going to be revealed. And I can see, oh, they know they're keeping a secret and I believe them. Now this is interesting. And sometimes too, it's when someone maybe does something a little where you're like, well, that would never happen. That's not right. But the fact that they even made this bold choice, sometimes it works because it suits the person making it.
Yeah.
And that choice wouldn't necessarily work for everyone. We wouldn't ask everyone to do that, but that person is unique and the choice so suits them that now you're intrigued and you might want to consider them, further in the process.
You have so many credits, obviously, and some of the movies that you guys both have worked on, I should say some of the movies that both you ladies have worked on. One of my favorites was Waitress with Kerry Russell. And I'm sure it was a big favorite with a lot of people. And can you talk to me a little bit about the highlights of casting that film and maybe what it is about Kerry Russell that stands out to you and what makes her such a great actress?
Sure. I mean, casting Kerry Russell at the time was a little bit of a risk in that she had great success in television. Sorry. Speaking of accidents, my
Who
cat.
is that?
That was my cat, who
Hi,
really
I
loves
have
to
a
be
cat.
very close to me.
Oh, okay.
So Kerry had great success with Felicity, and
Yeah.
she had done some films, but had never really carried a film. And certainly something that was more of a dark comedy wasn't sort of where she had made her living at that point. So she actually auditioned for Waitress and showed just how amazing her comedy chops were and how well she fit the role. So it was exciting to use her because it was a fresh idea and it was a bit of a risk. And that can often be the fun part of independent films, is you have the opportunity to take risks in casting.
Sure.
So, I mean, that was fun. Certainly having the opportunity to cast Andy Griffith was amazing. He had been retired at the time and decided that he was looking for something that might be fun, and Waitress came along and was that thing for him. So it was very exciting for us to have such a, an icon in the movie.
Yeah, absolutely. Nathan Fillion too. I mean, there
Mhm.
were so many great characters and so many great actors in that. I always ask this question, and I know it's like choosing a child, but is there one specific project that you both worked on that you really, hold close to your heart because it's one of your favorites, and why? We'll go with you, Sunny. Are you allowed to even say that and confess which one is your favorite?
It's always challenging because Waitress is special because, it was our first really splash in terms of starting our company and really have something that was successful financially, and it premiered at Sundance. And then unfortunately the director was killed. And so it's very special in its life, just it has its own thing. I have only seen it the one time at Sundance. I have never watched it again. It's very special.
Is that
I just can't do it.
wow.
And so, so for me, that has it's a very special place in time. And also the casting of it was amazing. We had an amazing experience. The producer, Michael Royf, is someone who we've stayed friends with and have worked with him many times afterward. But then later for me, something like we did Hello, My Name is Doris with Michael Showalter. And that film was awesome also because it was the first time I had a movie that was very successful that I went to watch at a regular movie theater that was totally packed and people are clapping. And I could hear people talking about how much they loved this movie. And so it was very exciting to, see my work and then having such a positive response from people loving it. Because Waitress also, we've gotten love letters from the Waitress being their favorite film of all time. We had I auditioned someone right before the pandemic who came into the office and he sat down and he was like, I need a moment. It's like, hey, is everything okay? And he goes, I didn't realize you'd cast Waitress, and that's my most favorite film ever. And I saw the poster in your waiting room, and now I have to recover.
Oh, amazing. I love that.
And Hello, My Name is Doris, for some people has kind of had a similar thing for them, which is so cool to be a part of creating something that stands out as a singular favorite for audience members. You can only dream of having those projects that the people are like, that's my favorite movie of all time.
Yeah, for sure. Meg, which one is yours?
I mean, I agree that those were both really special experiences. It's very hard for me to say which one was my favorite because, some movies have the working experience has been just so memorable, and maybe the movie didn't make as big a splash, but the director was so collaborative, and we really got to see some great actors and give people opportunities in leading roles that maybe they didn't have them before. And so those kinds of experiences stay with me as well. One movie that I think we put a lot of time and energy into was a movie called Natural Selection, that was directed by Robbie Pickering. And it's a movie that when we both read it, we instantly knew who we wanted the male lead to be. It's an actor we had seen at a film at Sundance in a supporting role. And we both separately, it was kind of like, we went away and read. We came back and talked. And we both were like, he must be the lead. He's perfect for the lead. And we ended up working on the film for, I think, 3 years before it really it was cast. The leads were cast twice. It's an independent film. Lots of things happened. And so then by the time we got down to really casting, because we knew we were going to shoot, it was a tiny budget, but we just believed in the film and the director so much. And, we got a great cast, and we ended up with the guy, Matt O'Leary, who we had known for 3 years was the guy. And we went through other people, and Sunny and I really fought for him to get that role because we just knew that he'd be perfect for it. And I think one of the most rewarding things about that movie is it was at South by Southwest, and they couldn't even fill a theater for one screening. Nobody was interested. And then the awards came, and it won every single award. So it won Best Film.
It won everything but one.
So when all the actors won, cinematography, editing, music, it won all of these awards. And I would have to imagine, unfortunately, we weren't there for the awards, but everybody in the audience was like, what is this movie? And then, of course, after that, they had to add screenings because everybody wanted to see it. But it's just such great justification for this tiny movie that a lot of people, behind the scenes believed in. Yeah. And it really, got its day.
And Rachel Harris who was the lead female, was nominated for an Independent Spirit Award. And this movie was made for pennies. I mean, his family, the director's family, did the craft service. It was made for pennies. And yet her work was so outstanding that she even was nominated for an Independent Spirit Award, which is really, especially at that time, extremely rare for a movie being made for almost nothing.
I love hearing stories about that, especially with independent films where they say, the budget is so minuscule and you can't really get the actors that you want, and you're calling in on your friends to, work on craft service, do wardrobe, et cetera, et cetera. And then they end up exploding onto the scene and everybody wants to watch it. So how do you see the industry now moving forward, especially after a pandemic? I know things have picked up in Los Angeles and, people are back on sets. Obviously, there's different COVID restrictions, et cetera, et cetera. But how do you see the industry moving forward after a pandemic? And do you see any changes that you think are here to stay?
Well, I really hope movies are not, I really want movies to be back.
Me too.
To a certain degree. I love working on movies. I love going to the movies. When the movie theaters opened here, I went almost immediately. I've seen a few things. Same. But I'm hopeful that industry, the passion projects, the movies that aren't Marvel movies, are going to still have their day, because it's such a beautiful thing to have those voices of it's where a lot of people cut their teeth as writers, directors, actors, get opportunities that you don't get when for a big budget movie or television show where you're looking for people who will carry the series. And yet it's a place where so many people can show their range and abilities on all levels of in the industry. Even, you know, editing, all of that is shown on these projects where someone goes, okay, you're not exactly what we wanted, but you're what we can afford. And then you go make something great. And it turns out they were the perfect fit. And I think it's such a place where so many actors get to really explore other sides of characters versus a TV show that you're on for 20 years and you play the same guy forever.
Yeah.
So I'm hopeful. I mean, we have several things that are coming out and certainly have some projects that are brewing, but it's been way less than before. And I know some filmmakers are hesitant because it's costly to be testing people for COVID, you know, all day, every day. So, but I don't know. I think some people are also a little fearful of being on set, and which I understand, but it's also sad to me that the creative process is somewhat hindered by a fear. It's very difficult to be creative. I have like a fly.
Stealing your spotlight.
Yes.
It's difficult to be creative when you're under the thumb of fear.
Yeah, that's very well put. You had mentioned movie theaters, and I'm a big advocate for movie theaters. I love going into a theater, having the surround sound, the popcorn, big screen. I mean, you can't watch Bond on a small screen. You just can't.
No.
You just can't. But I also find that with the pandemic, there was a rise in social media, right? And now all of a sudden there are these social media stars. And, you know, I wonder, do actors have to be concerned about social media? Should they put an effort into their social media platforms to make them a bigger or a more, I guess, recognized actor? I mean, I'm not talking about the Will Smiths and you know, those, but actors who are starting out. How important is it to you as two casting directors for them to have, you know, a profile on social media and have an existence there?
I mean, as a casting director, it is not important to me that you have a social media profile. We have worked on a handful of things where production has wanted someone with a social media profile, right? And most of the time they want someone who has numbers well into the millions, which the average person is not going to get. And the people who do have that aren't already famous for something else, it's a full-time job, which takes away from working on your acting. Right. So we haven't had an experience where somebody who has less than, you know, a few million followers, it has mattered how many followers they have. I think where it has mattered, and not necessarily for Sunny and I in choosing people or auditioning people, but when we're getting close and producers start looking at people's social media, I think it becomes more important that your social, whatever your presence is reflective of who you are and what you want the world to see of you.
Right. Right. How important, or how open are you to discovering new talent? I know you have obviously a roster of your talent that you look at, but are you open to seeing new actors and seeing what they have to offer, or are you very selective at who you work with?
I mean, I think you can do both things. You can be selective while also meeting a lot of new people. I can't think of a project that I've done where I haven't met new actors for some role in the project. But at the same time, I also consider myself very selective in who I'm choosing to bring in. So they could be new to me, they could be new to acting in general, but they fit something about them, their resume, their work fits what I'm looking for. And so even if they have less of a resume, I'm willing to take a chance because there's something else interesting about them. I love meeting new people and expanding the actors that I know and that come to mind when we're, you know, thinking of projects and roles.
Yeah, absolutely. So is there any is there any type of advice that you would give to an actor for them to perfect their skills, or like for them to become better actors? What advice would you give them? Let's give it to you, Sunny.
Well, I think part of that is knowing where you're at right now and being honest with yourself about what are the things I'm really great at right now as an actor, or what are my special skills that make me unique and strong in certain areas. And then knowing, oh, maybe I'm not as great at this thing, and that's something I'm going to put effort into working on to better round out my skill set. I think it does require being honest with where am I at, because so often people are submitting for things or have their people submitting them, and they're not ready for whatever this role requires. And then then it's not great. It's not normally a great audition. And I do believe in expanding our skills, and I think that comes with practice. So we have to be honest. If I'm not great at comedy, then now is when then let me work on my comedy and take classes, do some improv, do the things that will improve that skill, even if that's not long-term goal. I'm not hoping to be on SNL. That's okay. You can still improve on the understanding of comedy and the skill set required to maybe be at least more rounded as an actor and be able to maximize more opportunities. And also special skills. If you're a beginner guitar player, well, let's work on that, because you will automatically putting yourself into a smaller pool the more things you are actually really good at. Mm-hmm. If we cast something a few months ago, it was in Hawaii. I needed a guy who was comfortable and capable of paddleboarding in the ocean, and not just amateur, like actually be good at this.
Right.
So great. If you're somebody who's like, well, I've kind of dabbled, but I really love it, then let's maximize. Let's make it so that we're great at this thing, not just I kind of can do it a little bit. Anything you can do where, especially if you're interested in it, let's get better at it. So I speak, basic Spanish. Okay, let's improve it, because now you're putting yourself into a place where less people are you're going to be competing against fewer people when they need this particular thing. Or don't let skills get rusty, right? If you're a person who's great at something, keep it up. Don't get rusty, because then at some point, maybe there's that perfect part and you're one of 10 instead of one of 1,000.
Right.
We've done a lot of unique searches and needed people with different kinds of dance skills, language, sports. And when, and because the other thing too is that, so you played football in high school. Well, the truth is, when we go to audition football players, people from the NFL audition.
Right.
So maintained a bit. Maybe now you can compete.
Right. I always wondered about that too. When they tell you to check off your special skills, I'm like, yeah, I was a cheerleader, but when I was 10, it doesn't apply right now. I mean, I've got to sharp up on my dancing skills and my salsa lessons. It doesn't apply anymore. Okay, we're going to have a little bit of fun right now. Unless, Meg, you wanted to add to any of that? No? Okay, great. Not okay, great, meaning if you don't want to add to it, it's okay, fine. But I'm going to ask you some questions that I ask all of our casting directors. It's just fun. You don't have to put much thought into it. Just rapid fire answers would be fine if you want, no problem. Sunny, what is the last thing you streamed or movie you watched?
I just streamed, oh my goodness, what's it called? Dr. Foster. Dr. Foster is what I'm watching.
Okay. Meg?
The last thing I streamed was Heels, the show on Stars, which I was very curious about.
What is your favorite movie, Meg, and why?
Oh gosh. That's a really hard one for me. I think a movie that I have always loved and can watch over and over again is A Walk on the Moon, which is Tony Goldwyn's directorial debut. And I think partly because when I watched that movie initially 20 years ago when it came out, I was just so impressed by how much he as a director trusted his actors. And I had the good fortune of meeting and talking with a few of those actors after I saw the movie and heard about the process. And it was just such a organic, creative process where the script was great to begin with. And then everyone on that set just felt creatively supported. And I thought you can see that in the film.
Mm-hmm.
It also has the sexiest scene ever in the bus.
It does.
Does that count as your favorite movie as well?
Oh, no.
Okay.
No.
All
My
right.
favorite movie of all time
Yeah.
is The Princess Bride,
Okay. Why?
because I saw it in the 4th grade with
Okay.
my friend Cynthia Bankston. And I was rolling, crying, laughing. I mean, I loved this movie. Thought it was so funny. And Cynthia Bankston next to me did not think it was funny. She didn't get it. She didn't like it. And she was my very best friend. And I watched it on my birthday every year for years. We worked with Carrie Elways recently, and that was like a dream.
Yeah.
This was like a dream come true, because I've memorized the movie. I can quote it verbatim, beginning to end. My dad even, he performs weddings, and he even one time quoted during the ceremony.
Oh my goodness.
Yes, marriage. He said that in the ceremony. So that for me, I don't watch things over and over again. I'm not a person who does a lot of repeat where I want to see this again. I don't feel that way about a lot of things, but The Princess Bride,
yeah,
I can tune in any old time.
We can tell. You just lit up there, and I assume that maybe yours was the same as Meg's, and you're like, oh no, I'm ready with this one. You knew Princess Bride.
Because I've watched it since I was such a little kid, and it was, there's movies that, of course, stick with you. Of course. But that's one that I've always thought was hilarious, and I still find it funny. I get excited to see The Man in Black.
Okay, then my next question, I'll still stick with you, Sunny. Would you ever cast yourself in that movie and want to play that character?
I don't think I'm right for that one. The movie that I love, so I'm not right for The Princess Bride.
Oh, okay, that's great.
All right. So what movie would you like to star in?
She's the one of a kind. But the movie that I am right for, that I also love, when it came out, I would have been way too young, but is the movie Clue.
Oh, okay.
Because my sense of humor, that is a movie I could have been cast in. If I was the right age, I would have been a baby. But that movie, which in high school, I had to do a school project for, I think, even like math class. And I decided to do a version of Clue.
Oh. And
so I rewrote, and we shot it at my house. It was one of my first movies I directed. And so that is one I could see myself in.
Which character would you play in Clue?
Well, again, I'm too young, but probably Mrs. Peacock.
I was going to say Mrs. Peacock. I play Clue with my daughter, the board game, and I'm always like fighting for Mrs. Peacock.
She's my favorite. In the movie, I think she is so funny. Yeah. And I think my sense of comedy naturally is in line with Mrs. Peacock. I'm too young to be Mrs. Peacock. Yeah. One day.
Mrs. Peacock or Scarlet is the.
Oh, well, yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Meg, if you can cast yourself in a movie, what movie would it be and who would you play?
This is not a question I've ever been asked. So I honestly don't know the answer. I mean, what I can say is it would be a drama.
Okay.
It would not be a comedy. Because I tend to be a very serious person.
It's true.
So I don't know. I am a big fan I like dramas, and I'm also a huge fan of sports movies. This is where Sunny and our taste in movies is very different, which is fun. But I am a huge sucker for any sports movie with underdogs and where you're rooting for the team or the person all the way through.
Okay.
Maybe you could be in A League of Their Own.
Oh, that's a good one.
That's funny. Who was the serious person in A League of Their Own? Because that would be my role.
There's no crying baseball. That wasn't a funny one.
Exactly. There was
Yeah.
great people in that.
Yeah.
That's true.
Okay, so now we're talking about movies and characters. So who do you find today is probably the most underrated actor in your eyes, and why?
Oof.
Oh, I love it. There's silence.
Suddenly blanking on his name. And he's growing in popularity now. So this is somebody I've loved for a while. Hold on, because I always say it wrong.
You both remind me of two actresses as well. You both have very, very distinct looks, and you both, I feel like you've both been on the screen.
Oh.
As you're looking for the name that you want to talk about.
Well, I figured so do you know who Harry Melling is?
No, I'm sorry, I don't.
It's okay. This is why he's underrated.
Oh, there you go.
So he was in The Queen's Gambit.
Yes.
He was also originally in Harry Potter years ago.
Okay.
I'm trying to think. He also had another. What was amazing to me is I recently saw him. Well, I saw him in The Queen's Gambit, and then he was also in The Devil All the Time,
Right.
which his role in that movie, and both of those things came out roughly around the same time. And the two roles he played were so radically different from one another that I just think he's tremendously versatile, and he is getting his due. He is working all the time right now. He will be a character actor that people know very soon. But I also would love to cast him in something because I just think he's very special.
Okay, amazing. You remind me of Andy McDowell. There you go.
Thank you.
You as Andy McDowell in a movie.
Thank you.
Right now on Netflix. There you go.
That's true.
There you go. Okay, my last one is guilty pleasure, ladies. It could be anything. Come on, we all have them.
Guilty pleasure to watch?
Guilty pleasure, anything. It could just be like wine and chips on a Friday night. Oh, Sunny, I didn't ask you about your most underrated actor.
I can't think of, I was trying to think if there's someone I've been wanting to cast, but I can't think of anybody
Okay, then you're
that
guilty.
feel that way about right this minute. I don't know. I can't think of anyone right this second.
No worries. Meg, your guilty pleasure.
Gosh. I think I watched some pretty bad TV, like not
Bachelor bad?
No. I don't, nothing against people who love The Bachelor. I am not into reality TV.
Okay.
So that's not where I go, but more sort of poppy drama type television.
Okay.
I would definitely say I can be caught doing that, streaming things like that on a random Friday night.
For sure. Who hasn't, right? Been there, done that. Sunny, your guilty pleasure.
I don't have anything I think of as a guilty pleasure. I definitely enjoy drinking wine, at night, and I do like to sneak away and play golf during the day.
Well, that's
It's not guilty. I don't feel bad about it.
That could be considered a guilty pleasure. But again, I will say the same thing I said to Meg about the wine. Been there, done that. Yes, ladies. Amazing. So I want to thank you both for being here on The Working Actor for season 3. We're so happy to have you here for an hour so that actors from around the world can gain some really valuable insight from the both of you. So thank you so much for lending us your time, your expertise, and your knowledge. And congratulations on your awards. Congratulations on your success. And hopefully we'll all be back in an office where we can all see each other face to face and have some in-person auditions coming real soon. But in the
Yes.
meantime, you're always welcome back here on the Working Actor and Casting Workbook. Thanks so much.
Thank
Thank you.
you.